My sister moved into my house without permission, scattered her things everywhere, and changed the lock on the door while I was at work, so I called the police to break down the door and arrest her. But she just made everything so much worse. Let me paint you a picture of my sister Emma. She's 24, I'm 28, and we couldn't be more different if we tried. While I was working 2 jobs through college, she was partying and flunking out. While I was eating ramen and saving every penny for a down payment, she was getting bailed out by our parents every month. While I was house hunting and dealing with mortgage applications, she was on her 3rd gap year, trying to find herself. I finally bought my house 2 years ago. It's nothing fancy, a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood, but it's mine. I worked 60-hour weeks, drove a beater car for 6 years, and lived like a monk to afford it. Emma, meanwhile, was living rent-free in our parents' basement, complaining that life was unfair and that some people just get lucky. The house has become my sanctuary. I've got my gaming setup in the 2nd bedroom, turned the 3rd bedroom into a home office where I do freelance work, and I've been slowly fixing it up room by room. It's the first place that's ever truly felt like home to me. 3 weeks ago was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays are usually my long days. I work my main job from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., then do freelance web design until around 9 p.m. I was exhausted, looking forward to ordering some Chinese food and playing video games until I fell asleep. I pull into my driveway around 9:30 p.m. and immediately know something's wrong. There's a U-Haul truck in my driveway, and every light in the house is on. My first thought is that I'm being robbed, but then I see boxes stacked on my front porch. I try to unlock my front door. My key won't work. I try again, thinking maybe I'm just tired and not inserting it right. Nothing. The lock has been changed. That's when my neighbor Bill comes jogging over. Bill's this retired guy who's lived next door for 15 years and basically keeps watch over the whole street. He's panting a little as he approaches me. "Hey, your sister said you told her she could move in today? She's been here since about noon with that truck." My blood ran cold. My sister? Yeah, young blonde girl? Said her name was Emma and that you gave her permission to move some stuff in while you were at work. Seemed nice enough, but I thought it was weird you didn't mention it. I'm standing there processing this when I hear music coming from inside MY house. Not just any music, some terrible pop music that Emma loves and I hate. I call her immediately. She answers on the first ring, all cheerful. "Oh, hey. Perfect timing. I just finished setting up my room. Well, I had to move some of your gaming stuff, but don't worry, I put it somewhere safe." "Emma, what the hell are you doing in my house?" "I moved in. Mom said you wouldn't mind since you have all that extra space, and I really needed somewhere to stay. Plus, we're family. Family helps family, right?" I'm seeing red at this point. "You changed my locks." "Well, yeah, I needed to make sure the house was secure while I was moving my stuff in. You can't be too careful these days." The first confrontation. I told Emma she had exactly 10 minutes to open the door and start moving her stuff out, or I was calling the police. She laughed. Actually laughed and said, "You're being so dramatic. Just come around to the back door. I left it unlocked for you." I walk around to my back door, and I can see through the kitchen window that my house looks like a tornado hit it. There are boxes everywhere, her clothes draped over my furniture, and she's completely rearranged my living room. My 55-inch TV has been moved to accommodate some massive vintage dresser that looks like it weighs 500 pounds. When I get inside, it's even worse. Emma has made herself completely at home. She's wearing one of my old college t-shirts, eating ice cream straight from the container, my ice cream, and has her feet up on my coffee table. The coffee table I spent months saving for and assembled myself. "Isn't this great?" she says, gesturing around like she's showing off her own place. "I've been thinking we should be roommates for ages. It'll be just like when we were kids, except better because now we're adults and can do whatever we want." I try to stay calm. "Emma, you can't just move into someone's house without asking. This is breaking and entering." "Oh, don't be so dramatic. I had a key. Remember when you asked me to house sit last year when you went to that work conference? I made a copy, just in case. You never asked for it back, so technically you gave me permission to be here. The logic was so twisted I didn't even know where to start. Making an unauthorized copy of someone's key and using it to break into their house is still illegal, Emma. She rolls her eyes. God, you're being such a buzzkill. Look, I lost my job at the boutique last week, and my lease is up at the end of the month. I was going to be homeless. What was I supposed to do? Get another job? Find a roommate? Move back in with mom and dad? Literally anything other than break into my house. Mom and dad said I should ask you for help. They said you'd understand because you're my big brother and you've always been so responsible and successful. And there it was. My parents had put this idea in her head. Not directly told her to break in, obviously, but they'd planted the seed that I should be helping her out. I made a mental note to have a very unpleasant conversation with them later. I told Emma she had two choices: pack up her stuff immediately and leave, or I was calling the police. She chose option 3, ignore me and turn up her music. So I called 911. The dispatcher asked if it was an emergency, and I explained that someone had unlawfully entered my home, changed the locks, and refused to leave. 2 officers showed up about 15 minutes later. Officer Martinez and Officer Chin were both professional and took the situation seriously. They asked to see my ID and documentation proving I own the house. I showed them my driver's license with the address, my mortgage documents, and utility bills in my name. When they knocked on the door, Emma answered with this innocent, confused expression like she had no idea why police would be at the door. Officers? Is everything okay? Ma'am, we received a report that you've unlawfully entered this residence. Do you live here? Well, yes. I just moved in today. This is my brother's house, and he said I could stay here. She gestured toward me. There's obviously been some miscommunication. Officer Martinez looked at me. Sir, did you give your sister permission to enter your home and change the locks? Absolutely not. I came home from work to find her here. She admitted she used an unauthorized copy of my key to get in and changed the locks without my permission. Ma'am, do you have any documentation showing you have a right to be in this residence? A lease agreement, rental contract, anything like that? Emma's confidence started to crack. Well, no, but we're family. He doesn't need to give me a lease to let me crash here for a while. But he's telling us he didn't give you permission to be here. He's just being mean because he's mad I didn't ask first. But I knew he'd say yes because we're family and he's got all this extra space. The officers exchanged a look. Officer Chin spoke up. Ma'am, entering someone's residence without permission, even if you're related, is criminal trespassing. Changing the locks on a property you don't own is also illegal. Emma's face went white. You're not going to arrest me, are you? This is just a family disagreement. I'm afraid it's more than that, ma'am. We're going to need you to gather your belongings and vacate the premises immediately. The first arrest. Emma tried to bargain. She offered to pay me rent, with what money, promised she'd only stay a few weeks, even suggested we could work out a roommate arrangement. When that didn't work, she switched to tears. Please, I have nowhere to go. I'll be homeless. How can you do this to your own sister? But the officers had seen this before. They gave her 30 minutes to pack essential items and told her she could arrange to collect the rest of her belongings later with police supervision. When she tried to argue that she couldn't move all her stuff in 30 minutes, Officer Martinez pointed out that she'd had all day to move it in, so 30 minutes to move it out seemed reasonable. The waterworks really started then. Emma called our parents, crying hysterically into the phone about how I was having her arrested and how she was going to be homeless, and how this was all so unfair. I could hear my mother's voice through the phone, getting increasingly shrill. When Emma couldn't pack fast enough, mostly because she kept stopping to cry and make phone calls, the officers told her they were placing her under arrest for criminal trespassing. She completely lost it at that point, screaming about how I was ruining her life and how she'd never forgive me. As they put her in the back of the patrol car, she looked at me through the window with this expression of pure hatred and mouthed, "This isn't over." I should have taken that threat more seriously. After the police left, I spent the next 3 hours putting my house back together and changing the locks again. Emma had not just scattered her stuff everywhere. She'd gone through my belongings, eaten my food, and somehow managed to break my coffee maker. She'd also moved furniture around to accommodate her stuff, and some of my things were missing entirely. My parents called around midnight. Mom was crying, Dad was yelling, and both of them were demanding to know how I could do this to family. She broke into my house, Mom. She changed the locks. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to help her. She's your sister. She's going through a hard time. That doesn't give her the right to break into my house. She's family. Family doesn't abandon family. This went on for about an hour. They couldn't understand why I didn't just let Emma stay for a few weeks until she got back on her feet. They kept saying I was being selfish and cruel, that I had more than enough space, and that helping family should come before everything else. I finally hung up on them when Dad suggested that maybe Emma moving in was God's way of bringing our family closer together. Emma was released the next morning with a court date and a temporary restraining order that prohibited her from coming within 500 feet of my house. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, I came home to find my garage door spray painted with "selfish asshole" in bright red letters. There was no proof it was Emma, but who else would it be? A week after that, I found a broken window in my living room and some of Emma's jewelry scattered on the floor inside. She'd thrown a rock through the window and tossed some of her stuff in, then apparently left. The responding officer said it looked like she was trying to establish that she had belongings in the house to claim some kind of residency rights. Then the mail started arriving. Packages addressed to Emma at my address. Magazine subscriptions. Even a credit card application. She was trying to establish residency through mail delivery, thinking that would give her some legal right to be there. Each incident meant another police report, more evidence to collect, more time off work to deal with this mess. I installed security cameras, upgraded to smart locks, and put up motion sensor lights. My peaceful little home was starting to feel like a fortress. The break-in with friends. 2 weeks after the initial arrest, I came home from a weekend visiting my college buddy to find my house had been broken into again. This time, Emma hadn't come alone. She'd brought 2 of her equally awful friends, Jessica and Madison, and they'd essentially thrown a party in my house. The security cameras I'd installed caught everything. Emma used a crowbar to pry open my back door, and the 3 of them spent the entire Saturday in my house. They ate my food, used my shower, slept in my bed, and even ordered pizza to my address. On the footage, you can see Emma giving them a tour of the house like she owns it. They'd also done more damage this time. Someone had spilled wine on my couch. There were cigarette burns on my coffee table. None of them are supposed to smoke, and they'd somehow managed to clog my toilet so badly that it overflowed and flooded the bathroom. When the police arrived to take the report, Officer Martinez shook his head. This is escalating. You need to consider a permanent restraining order. Emma was arrested again, along with Jessica and Madison. This time, she was charged with breaking and entering, burglary, violation of a restraining order, and destruction of property. Jessica and Madison got charged with breaking and entering and being accessories. The legal battle begins. I hired a lawyer at this point. Sarah Chin, no relation to Officer Chin, specialized in family law and restraining orders. She took one look at all my documentation, police reports, photos, security camera footage, repair receipts, and told me we had a solid case. Your sister seems to believe that family relationships override property law, she said. Unfortunately for her, they don't. We're going to get you a permanent restraining order, and we're going to make sure she pays for all the damage she's caused. The legal process was exhausting. Depositions, hearings, paperwork. Emma fought everything, claiming I was harassing her and that she was the real victim. Her lawyer, paid for by our parents, naturally, tried to argue that this was a family dispute that should be handled in mediation, not criminal court. Meanwhile, Emma was posting on social media about how her cruel, selfish brother had her arrested and was trying to make her homeless. She shared our childhood photos with captions about how I used to protect her, but now I was choosing money over family. Her friends were sharing the posts, and I started getting messages from people I went to high school with asking why I was being so mean to my sister. The rental scam. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. I got a phone call on a Thursday evening from a man named Mike. Hi, Is this about the rental property on Maple Street? I'm calling because me and my wife are supposed to move in this weekend, but we wanted to confirm the move-in time with you. I was confused. I'm sorry, what rental property? The house your sister Emma is renting to us? 3-bedroom ranch? We signed the lease last week and put down first month's rent plus security deposit. My blood turned to ice. Can you tell me the exact address? He rattled off my address. My address. Emma was renting out my house to strangers. Sir, I think you've been scammed. That's my house, and my sister has no authority to rent it to anyone. She's actually under a restraining order and isn't allowed within 500 feet of the property. There was a long silence. Then, are you saying the lease we signed isn't valid? It got worse. Mike and his wife Sarah had not only paid Emma $3,200 in rent and deposits, they'd already given notice at their current apartment and hired movers. They were supposed to move into my house in 3 days. I asked Mike to send me copies of the lease documents Emma had given them. When I saw them, I was amazed at how professional they looked. Emma had forged my signature, created fake property management company letterhead, and even included official-looking clauses about pet policies and maintenance requests. If I didn't know better, I might have thought they were real. Mike and Sarah were devastated. They were a young couple, probably about my age, and they'd saved up for months to afford the move. They'd been so excited to get out of their tiny apartment, and Emma had stolen that from them. The investigation. I immediately called my lawyer and the police. Detective Rodriguez was assigned to the case, and she was fantastic. Turns out Emma had been advertising my house on multiple rental websites, complete with photos she'd taken during her break-ins. Your sister is looking at serious fraud charges, Detective Rodriguez explained. Wire fraud, forgery, theft by deception. We're talking potential federal crimes here. The detective interviewed Mike and Sarah, who had kept all their communications with Emma. She'd been using a fake email address and a Google Voice number, but she'd been sloppy about covering her tracks. The rental ads were posted from her IP address, and she'd used her real PayPal account to collect the money. Emma had also apparently shown the house to several other potential renters, though Mike and Sarah were the only ones who'd actually paid her money. Security footage from my neighbor's cameras showed her bringing people by for showings on multiple occasions. While the investigation was ongoing, Emma violated the restraining order again. This time, she spray-painted, "You destroyed my life" on my garage door, keyed my car, and left a box of dog feces on my front porch. The security cameras caught her doing all of it. She was arrested for the 3rd time, and this time, the judge denied bail. Emma spent 2 weeks in jail before my parents managed to scrape together enough money to post bond. During those 2 weeks, I finally got some peace. I could come home from work without wondering what I'd find. I could sleep through the night without jumping at every sound. I started to remember what it felt like to feel secure in my own home, but it didn't last. The day Emma got out of jail, she called me from a blocked number and left a voicemail. "This is all your fault. Everything bad that happens to me from now on is because of what you did. I hope you can live with yourself." The trial took place on a rainy Tuesday in November. I'd been dreading it for weeks, but I was also ready to put this whole nightmare behind me. The prosecutor, Ms. Williams, was thorough and professional. She laid out Emma's crimes in chronological order: the initial trespassing, the property damage, the multiple break-ins, the restraining order violations, and finally the rental fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. Security camera footage of Emma breaking in, spray-painting my garage, and conducting fake rental showings. Photos of all the damage she'd caused. Copies of the fraudulent lease documents with my forged signature. Testimony from Mike and Sarah about how they'd been scammed. Emma's lawyer tried to paint her as a desperate young woman who'd made some bad decisions because she was facing homelessness. He argued that she never intended to hurt anyone and that this was ultimately a family dispute that had gotten out of hand. Emma herself took the stand and tried to cry her way out of it. She claimed I'd been emotionally abusive to her our whole lives, that I'd always been jealous of the attention she got from our parents, and that I'd orchestrated this whole thing to destroy her life because I was bitter about my own loneliness. None of it worked. The judge had seen it all before. Ms. Last name, Judge Stevens said, "You are a grown adult who has repeatedly chosen to break the law rather than take responsibility for your own housing situation. Your brother's success does not entitle you to his property. Your family relationship does not give you the right to commit fraud, trespass, or destroy property." The judge continued, "What's particularly troubling to this court is the rental scam. You didn't just victimize your brother. You victimized innocent people who trusted you. Mike and Sarah Thompson saved their money, made arrangements to move, and were left with nothing because of your actions. That shows a callous disregard for others that goes far beyond family dysfunction." The verdict: Emma was found guilty on all charges. Criminal trespassing, multiple counts. Breaking and entering, multiple counts. Burglary. Vandalism/destruction of property. Harassment. Violation of restraining order, multiple counts. Wire fraud. Forgery. Theft by deception. The sentence was harsh but fair. $15,000 in fines and court costs. Full restitution to Mike and Sarah, $3,200. $12,000 in damages to me for property damage, security upgrades, legal fees, and lost work time. 18 months probation. 200 hours community service. Permanent restraining order. Prohibition from using social media to contact or harass me. Emma owed over $30,000 total. The judge also ordered her wages to be garnished until everything was paid in full. As the sentence was read, Emma broke down completely. She was sobbing and hyperventilating and had to be helped out of the courtroom by a bailiff. Her last words to me were, "I'll never forgive you for this." My parents, who had been supporting her throughout the trial, finally seemed to understand the gravity of what Emma had done. When Mike and Sarah approached them after the sentencing to ask about getting their money back, Mom couldn't even look them in the eye. "It's been 2 months since the trial, and my life is finally getting back to normal. Emma is living in a studio apartment across town and working at a call center to pay off her debts. She's managed to pay back Mike and Sarah in full. I think our parents helped with that, and she's been making payments to me as well. We don't speak. The restraining order is permanent, and I'm fine with keeping it that way." Emma burned every bridge she had with her actions, and some things can't be forgiven. My parents and I have started talking again, but our relationship is different now. They finally understand that enabling Emma wasn't kindness, it was cruelty. It prevented her from learning to take care of herself and gave her the impression that she was entitled to other people's things just because she wanted them. I've kept all the security measures I installed: cameras, smart locks, motion sensors. It might seem like overkill now, but after everything that happened, I value my peace of mind more than anything. My house feels like home again. I can come back from work and know that my things will be where I left them. I can sleep through the night without worrying about what I'll find in the morning. I can have friends over without explaining why there are cameras everywhere and why I check all the locks twice before bed. Final thoughts. Looking back, I think the hardest part wasn't dealing with Emma's break-ins or even the legal battle. It was the constant gaslighting from my family, the suggestion that I was being cruel by not letting Emma crash at my place, the implication that success came with an obligation to support people who refuse to support themselves. But I learned something important. You can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Emma's problems were not my problems to solve, and her poor planning was not my emergency to handle. I worked hard for everything I have. I made sacrifices, saved money, and built a life I'm proud of. Emma tried to take that from me, not because she needed it to survive, but because she felt entitled to it. She thought being family gave her the right to my home, my security, and my peace of mind. She was wrong, and now she's paying the price for that mistake. To anyone dealing with entitled family members who think your success means you owe them something, you don't. Set boundaries, stick to them, and don't feel guilty about protecting what you've worked for. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their own actions. My sister Emma learned that the hard way, and honestly, it was a long time coming. Emma still has about $18,000 left to pay me, and she's been making regular payments through wage garnishment. I've used some of the money I've received to make improvements to my house. New flooring in the bathroom that got flooded, a better security system, and some furniture to replace what got damaged. Mike and Sarah ended up finding an even better place and invited me to their housewarming party. It was nice to see something good come out of all this mess. They're good people who didn't deserve what Emma put them through. As for me, I'm doing well. I got a promotion at work. I'm dating someone new who thinks the whole Emma situation was completely insane, and I'm planning to take my first real vacation in years. My house is still my sanctuary. Emma can't touch it anymore, and life is good. Sometimes justice takes a while, but when it comes, it's worth the wait.